Welcome to Preparing for the Unexpected. Today, we're going to talk about geopolitics and supply chains, and I'd like to welcome to the show Zera Zhang, the Global Head of Business Resilience and Consulting at Maersk. Zera, welcome back.
Thank you very much, Alex. Thank you for the audience here. And also my pleasure to be back again.
Yes, it's about your third time, I think now, third or fourth, something like
Yeah, yes, third time.
that. Well, as I mentioned, there's a lot going on with geopolitics and supply chains right now. And there was a recent article on eMag that talked about this, that it's now the geopolitics is really impacting our supply chains. And I'm wondering what you'd like to say about that.
Yeah, that's definitely. And Alex, you know that the job I'm doing at Maersk, I'm more focused on the risk management solution development, right? So also giving me a lot of opportunity to talk to the different customers from the different verticals and industry. So what we observe actually for especially for 2025, and that more and more senior leaders, especially the supply chain teams and the customer side, they are concerning about the geopolitics. And also for the risk data, we actually capture within Maersk. It's also showing us the geopolitical risk now actually getting increasing the frequency and also increasing the impact to the supply chain. When I say the impact, it's not just about these country or trade bans or sanctions, but actually, we are also seeing the things like the breakdown for just, some raw material supplies, and also this is give a spillover impact, even sometimes because the congestions for certain ports or severe delays for some cargos. So we do see the impact by these geopolitical risks is definitely increasing now.
Should more and more organizations, the different groups within an organization,
Mm.
like risk, supply chains, procurement, business continuity, resilience, should they be working closer and closer now? Because this is really the geopolitical climate around the globe is really
Yeah.
impacting organizations in more than one way. Like you said, it's not just one thing now.
Yes, definitely. I think this is an also, to be honest, what we observed, the one of the key challenges at a lot of organizations nowadays to integrate, to work together so with different department to make them all toward the same goals and on the resilient side. So how can different department can coordinate when the disruptions are hitting them? So this is actually I see a lot of challenges for many organizations. And this is now getting crucial and also a difficult task. The reason behind is also back to the kind of nature of the geopolitical risk. Like what I mentioned, right? The geopolitical risk is not just affecting the politics. It's not only affecting the policies. It's actually could give the spillover impact because there's a lot of factors can affecting the geopolitics. It could be the trade, that need to be considered, especially we see that increasing the trade protectionism arising, right? And also, it's sometimes it could be the conflict, a sudden conflict at the borders, and then suddenly cost your entire supply chains stopped. Though this is could give the spillover impact to another countries and the other areas or region. So we do see that sometimes these kind of chain reactions actually getting the predictions or assessment of the impact more difficult, more challenges to the organization. And also on the other side, it's very interesting. People always have kind of perceptions that okay, if there's something happening in the supply chain, cause the impact to the supply chain, then it should be the supply chain team or logistic team to come up with a solution. But actually, it's not the case. The most effective response should always to let all the relevant departments to work together. Sometimes it could be the product design department to come up with the ideas that, hey, maybe we can reduce the certain critical material use for these products, then actually help us and help the entire organization to reduce the dependency. And also could be something like a sales marketing team says, hey, maybe we can postpone the campaigns until 2 months later. That also helps. So actually important for all of us is to remember is the problem could be looks like in the supply chain or started with the supply chain, but the solution is beyond supply chain.
It's interesting you said that because traditionally and for years, we've been saying in the resilience industry or supply chain, just look for an alternate provider that'll solve your problems if one goes down. But it seems so much more complex than that. You can't just look for one alternate because that group or company or country, as you say, could be experiencing the exact same things you are.
Yeah, exactly. And also, one of the, I think, typical examples now we observed in the world, right? We talk a lot about the rare earth elements. We know that this is a lot of industries or companies have a key dependency on these things, right? But if you think about, hey, we want to look for the alternative. Where's the alternative? Come on, there's no other countries who can actually to supply these particular materials, in the same way that you are sourcing now. So this is a no alternative. You can say that. Then for the company itself, it's your decision whether for the situations you are facing now, what kind of options you have. You can say, hey, we because of no alternative, we do nothing. This is not the case. So we can still be innovative to think about. Since this is we have a key dependency on this, whether we can gradually reduce our dependency on certain material use in the product design or in the some change of the processing, manufacturing processing. So this also can help us to gradually reduce the dependency and also become more resilient. That's why I say it's not just about finding alternative, like you mentioned, right? It's also could be that the innovative solutions. So together with the other department to help the entire organization to be more resilient and reduce the dependency.
That's interesting. Not only are we changing some of our tactical activities, but should leadership also now consider this as a key priority in their strategic thinking?
Yes, definitely. And also, we also find, especially these years, we are seeing the growing numbers of the disruptions and also the growing impact by the geopolitics and also the other type of disruptions, right? So more and more investors, when they evaluate a company, whether worth to invest, they will also look at the company's resilience capability. So this is actually becomes one new critical, you can say, measurement for these investors and to when they evaluate this company. So I think that's also the message to back to the senior leaders, to the CEO of these companies. Hey, if the investors, if we want to get their support, get the investment, then whether our company is resilient enough. If you want to be more resilient, then what actions I need to do? I need to look at the vulnerabilities. I need to look at whether I have any dependency or bottlenecks or choke point in my supply chain. That could give a huge impact to my entire business survival. So these kind of things actually need to be addressed at the strategic level, exactly like you mentioned.
So it becomes a greater priority for them where it's not, like we said earlier, it's not leadership saying, hey, procurement or supply chain, whatever the group is called, go find an alternate supplier. They've got to change their thinking first before those other groups can go out and do things because otherwise there's a disconnect between what's actually happened in the organization and what leadership is actually expecting and wants to achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of organizations they will still perceive a change of the supply or finding the alternative supply is still, you can say, the quickest and the easiest ways to do. However, not always the ways that are working for a lot of organizations. Like what I mentioned, rare earths could be the good example, but also about the chips, right? It's very much depends on which countries, where's your business located, and also which industry you involve. You may see the different vulnerability or dependency across the world. This is also partially thanks to the globalizations we see in the past decades, right? So this is to help us to have the global manufacturing, a global supply. But meanwhile, also means to the organization, you have a dependency on the other country, on other companies to sourcing some materials and become part of your supply chain. So nowadays, and to the leaders, actually also we are not advising the leaders to say, hey, because you have a dependency on others, then you have to remove all your dependency. We know this is not the way. Also, cost-wise, it doesn't make sense. But important is what options in case you lost of this dependency. So this is actually the preparation is that the leadership need to have in their mind and also in their strategic risk planning.
I can't help but think that our organizations also have to pay attention to some of the geopolitical activities in other parts of the world where we may not currently be doing business, because there can still be an impact from those areas on what we do on our suppliers who are in those areas, right? We
Yeah.
have to pay attention outside of just our own little bubble.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I can give us more examples and how interesting, the supply chains could impact. So if you remember last year, there's Indonesia, Pakistan, they have the border military conflict, right? And then after this conflict, the both country announced that they will stop the tradings and moving the cargoes between these two countries. Then you can imagine for Pakistan, for India, they still have the daily shipments and actually export to the other, right? Then how exactly the cargo flow will be look like? Because these two countries not allow the cargoes directly to the country, then they goes to the Sri Lanka as a kind of a transshipment port. So this is also immediately cause the congestion at the Sri Lanka because of that. So you can also see, although Sri Lanka is not directly involved in this conflict, unfortunately, because of this trade impact on the cargo flow impact, then they also has been impacted indirectly because of the congestions.
Right. Any final thoughts on geopolitics and supply chains?
Well, actually, I would encourage every audience here just to think about for your organizations where you will see the next geopolitics situations or crisis will come up. That's going to be very interesting topic to really to think no matter which levels you are. Actually, we also seeing that more and more organizations put the geopolitical risk as one of their enterprise risk management things to consider, because this will give a long term and also the significant consequence to the business performance, right? So I would encourage the audience here to also to think about what could be the next crisis, a geopolitical crisis to your organization, and also what's the preparations that you can take from now on. That could be the good starting point.
Zera, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us today. I really appreciate you joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.